Hi, it's Milton Kane, the Christian Democratic Party candidate for the federal seat of Newcastle. Some people in Carnarvon in Western Australia were able to find some people that were missed by our surveillance. Our border protection, it seems to be at the township at Carnarvon, rather than on the high seas as it was supposed to be. Our border protection policies are essentially shot to pieces. The Christian Democratic Party has a very strong position. We actually believe that it is unsafe. We believe that it is unwise to do anything that assists people in thinking that taking a dangerous, unsafe boat trip to Australia is a way to come to Australia. We believe it's unwise for such actions to even be contemplated in the first place. That is why we suggest, and our policy is, that we want to establish refugee camps closest to the points of conflict. And anyone that turns up here without doing the due process, without doing the paperwork, they will be sent back after being fingerprinted, iris impression taken, and they will be put at the rear of the queue to be processed. We believe we need to have people processing people at those refugee camps. The Australian government needs to be in charge. Some will criticise our policy and say it's harsh. Well, it's not actually. One of the things is this. When we deal with a situation, we actually have to make sure that what we do and what we permit is safe. One of the reasons why people have suggested that the law needs to have the principle to wear a helmet on a push bike is not because riding a push bike is unsafe. It's rather falling from the bike, if something goes wrong, can be unsafe and damage your head, and you can receive serious head injuries. And so what we do is we make a law for you to wear a helmet. And that's fine. Driving a car without a seatbelt in itself is not unsafe. But if the vehicle needs to lurch suddenly, or in fact if it's involved in an accident, that's when the seatbelt comes to its own. And it becomes a restriction, and it makes it important that we wear a seatbelt for our own protection. The seatbelt that we need as far as the refugee situation is concerned is we need to have a seatbelt before people board the boat to prevent them from boarding the boat in the first place. All the talks that we have with other nations around to try and stop people boarding the boat is not going to help, unless at the end of the day, when the people arrive on the boat, we make sure that there is a disadvantage to them. The no advantage test of the government is of little consequence, because let's be fairly honest. If you happen to be in a crowd of 1,000 people wanting to put in an application form, you wait your turn. But if you do something that gets to the front of the queue, and we apply the no advantage test, how do we put you back into that crowd in a random place? We don't. You're at the front of the queue, and you are there. By very fact of being there, you have an advantage over the ones that we actually have not actually seen as yet, but who may well have been waiting for some time to be processed. You see, the logic of the no advantage test fails. The logic of our border protection, so-called, fails. Border protection is only possible when people know there is only one door to which to enter. If I have a house and I want to protect my garden, I put a fence around it. And if I want people to be able to enter, to come to my front door, I will put a gate. And they will be able to see from the pathway from the gateway to my door where to walk, and therefore not damage the rest of my property. That is border protection. And we do have a gate and a pathway to our front door. And that is, you go and you apply in a refugee camp for refugee status. You are assessed. As you are assessed and your suitability of becoming a part of the Australian community is considered, you move along the process until such a time as a decision is made that you can come. At that point of time, a decision is made as to whether you need assistance or whether you're able to come to Australia under your own steam. And the process of you coming will be by a legitimate, safe means. You see, border protection is really about, amongst other things, protecting the lives of people who would try to crash through in a different way. These people who have arrived, and what the government will do with them, will show us the success of our border protection. These people have not just bumped into Australia by accident. It was a willful intention to go to another place without the permission to be there. We either need to repeal the acts associated with the requirement for entry permits to enter this country, or we need to act upon them. I say we need to act upon them. I say that we need to make sure that people who come here do not come by surprise. People who come here need to be able to do the paperwork. They need to make sure that they know that Australia is in charge. After all, if they want to just go willy-nilly wherever they want to be, I'm certain they would not like it if I did the same to them. We need to think long and hard about this. At the next election, you will have several choices before you. You will have essentially an open border program of the Labor and the Greens. You will have somewhat of the stopping of the boats program by the Coalition. Or you'll have a Christian Democratic Party position which simply says, we want to return them to their refugee camps that are created under the UN close to the points of conflict. You see, we're about the right process. We're about a moral process. And that's what we need to be. And if somebody can prove, for some particular reason, an urgency, an absolute fear of their life, our people, full of compassion and grace, will always address that as an unusual. But we have today almost everything as if it were an unusual. That's not the way to go. We need to be in charge, and we need to be in charge now. Thank you.